All right, howdy. Today I'm talking with State Representative RaShon Young for Voters Tomorrow, Florida, and this is the Gen Z Questions podcast. Representative RaShon Young is the youngest member of the Florida State Legislature and is the first Gen Z elected to serve in Florida. So, great opportunity. Glad we get to have you. Thanks for coming.
I
You
am
got anything you
glad
want to say to
to,
start?
yeah,
Sorry, I
I'm
didn't mean to
glad
talk
to
over you.
be here. Thank you for the invitation. I am extremely excited. First Gen Z Democrat elected to the Florida legislature. But certainly it is my hope that I'm not the last, right? And so, I tell people all the time, it is my job to make sure that not only do I step through the door, but I hold the door open for the next young leader that is excited and passionate about this work, that meets at the intersection of people and policy.
Yeah, it's really important that we get through that more people can and should get into policy, get into government, because there is opportunity to do positive change for our communities,
Yeah,
right? Like there's an opportunity to see those problems that you encounter every day and then go and deal with them and make them actually get better.
right.
So, I mean, starting along that line, like what community issues really, what got you to go, I need to run, that way I can fix this?
Um, if you look around, turn on the news, scroll through social media, there's enough things for us to all want to be a part of this fight for our democracy, for this fight for progress. But I'll tell you, one of the main things that I really was drawn to in this space is representation, one for young people, for the voice that feels like they are not heard. Young people make up probably the largest block of the apathetic voter block, the people who have disassociated from all things politics. And so I wanted them to know and wanted us to understand not only do we have a seat at the table, but it is our opportunity, and this is the opportunity for us to make sure that we can set the menu, and deciding what setting the menu looks like, right? If rent control, if it is protecting our environment, if it is making sure that we fix the issue so that when we as Gen Z leaders pass the torch over to the next generation, to Gen Alpha, like that we leave it in a better posture than how we received it. And we have, if we're going to be being completely honest, we have inherited a country, a world, even if you will, that has handed us a lot of rocks. We've been handed a bag of rocks, and it is unfortunate, right? Because I think so people in the annals of time have worked so hard to make sure that they did all the things, that they fought the good fight, that they showed up for their communities, that they did the things that were necessary to make sure that we had more rights than they did. And we are watching that being stripped before our eyes, right? Not in closed private rooms, not in dark meetings. Like they're doing it in real time in our faces, on social media, on the news. Like we are watching as people are saying, we do not want you to have the rights that people fought for. We watched it the other day in the Supreme Court's ruling over the maps in the South, like in Louisiana. So like this is an opportunity for us to show up and decide, are we going to be the ones that sit on the sideline, or are we going to get in the game? And I decided that I wanted to get in the game. And I know that, let me say this and then I'll stop answering because I know I'm giving you
It's good. I'm excited. Keep talking.
but I feel like, for so many of us, it is sad that young people are experiencing political fatigue right now, especially, you know, I can't even really say on the heels anymore of the 2024 election when there was so much excitement, there was so much energy, there was a movement and a feeling that we haven't in this country really experienced since, almost, the Obama times, right? And
Yeah.
so, we had that and people had so much hope for what was possible, and you see where we are, right? And I feel like a lot of people are experiencing protracted fatigue from that. But I tell people all the time, I know that you are tired. I know that you're tired of hearing that every election is the most important election of your life. I know that you're tired of hearing politicians get up and talk about how we have to keep fighting. I know that you're tired of hearing the talking point about keeping the fire burning. But while you're tired, and if you are too tired to get into the fight, I'm going to hold space for you, right? Because just because you're tired right now doesn't mean that you can't show up at some point. And so, for me, I really wanted to make sure that young people understood their space, that communities, particularly communities of color, had representation that looked like them at the table and understood the experiences, because we have politicians in places of influence that do not have a connection to the people. They don't know the issues they're facing. They've never walked in their shoes. When you are a multimillionaire, you don't know about the affordability crisis that's crippling people in this country, right? And
Yeah,
so we have to, that's something that we've been navigating and having to navigate, and that's a part of my why as to why I continue to show up every day, regardless of the kind of day that I have, because I know that if I'm having a good day or a bad day or a not so great day, that there's still a senior who's deciding if they can afford their prescriptions. There's still the mother who's trying to put food on the table, and so like that's my why, right? It
yeah.
is.
Sorry, I'd say a lot of that. I want to focus on also how you're talking about like 2024. A lot of this every year is the most important election we ever face. A lot of that I think feeds into the apathy because it's very passive.
Yeah.
It's very defensive. It's not promising someone something positive that they're voting for. It's not promising young people a this is what you get for voting. So like when you look at that, like for an example, I'm in politics because my brother was born deaf.
Mhm.
My family's in Florida, and we were told that if we did not get funding from the state legislature, his school was going to shut down. 10 years on, Florida is one of the best places in the world to be born as a deaf child
Yeah.
because we kept going back and we kept getting change. We got to see positively that showing up, being in the room meant change could happen. What is the thing that you're excited to go back to? To go back to your constituents and say, I got this, or I'm working on this. This is a positive thing to get you excited. Because it's very important to be in the room. It's very important to be defensive. But nowadays, especially, we're trying to find the positive things to
Mhm.
get voters to show up for.
Absolutely. So I'll tell you, healthcare is one of my top priorities, and making sure that everybody has access to affordable, quality healthcare. And I stress quality because sometimes affordable, when you get affordable, it doesn't equate to quality, right? Healthcare is something that is extremely important to me, and there's some policy that I'm excited to run through the process that I haven't had an opportunity and don't want to reveal it just yet because there's some exciting things. But there's some policy that I'm really trying to focus on in the next year or so around just making sure that we chisel away, because affordability in the healthcare space is a mammoth issue, right? And I don't, while I do think that I probably can, I have full faith that I'm the guy that can save all of the healthcare issues in the state of Florida, but I know that I can't, and I know that I can't do it in a silo, right? And so I'm chiseling away at that greater boulder. The other thing is public safety for our young people. And that's why, and it was really the pretense of a bill that Senator Jones and I ran this past legislative session called the Yaya Alert. That's one thing, but also what matters to me are the issues that matter to my constituents. And the reason, I know that that seems like a stereotypical answer. However, House District 40 is an extremely diverse district. We have the communities of College Park, Lockhart, Rosemont, Pine Hills, and Ocoee, right? And to the average person, you're like, okay, well, every politician, their constituents are their most important issue. However, the issues that I experience and the things that I hear them talk about in the College Park area are not the same as the Pine Hills area, right? And we saw that, my team and I saw that dichotomy this week because we were at College Park Neighborhoods Association meeting Monday and at Pine Hills on Tuesday, and they're two very separate things, right? Pine Hills is really concerned about the public safety and making sure that the environment for the people who live in that area is taken into consideration. That's why they have a presence. That's why they give space every time they have a neighborhood association meeting for the sheriff's office to provide an update, and talk about how crime is coming down in the area. Pine Hills has a low rentership, but a very high ownership. However, that doesn't equate to necessarily wealth, right? And so we see more working class people in the Pine Hills community. In College Park, the homes are multi-million dollar homes. These are legacy families who've been in this area for 20, 30 plus years, and are sitting on wealth, literally, right? And for some people, especially in this market, owning a home is an investment that you make, and hopefully you can get something off of it. The homeowners who have lived in College Park for expanded time period, those homeowners bought the houses at $200,000, $150,000. They're sitting on multi-million dollar homes now because of the zip code that they're in and the quaintness of College Park, right? And so you can imagine that they're more focused on the environment. They're more focused on making sure that, we went to one of the College Park Neighborhood Association meetings, and they were talking about the lending libraries, right? They were having an issue with the lending libraries. That's not the same as the people who live in Pine Hills, right? Who are trying to make sure, again, that they can put food on the table. They Everybody is concerned about property insurance, right? And auto insurance and how it's skyrocketing. And so like all of these things, to answer your question, like what is the most important thing to me? All of the things are because everybody is I have learned that in order to be an effective leader, you have to understand and meet people where they are, right? And I have learned that there are people, even Republicans, and I'll tell you a story if we have some time later about, someone that I met, an older lady who was a staunch Republican who, we just through talking, not talking about politics, not talking shop, she told me at the end of the conversation, she said, this entire time I've talked to you, I knew who you were, but I'm a staunch Republican, but I don't care what you are running for, I'm going to vote for you. Right. And so what I've learned is that you have to meet people where they are. To your point, you got involved in politics because of something that was important and passionate to you. I got involved in politics because I felt like there was a necessity for representation. Everybody has their thing, and every aspect of our life is regulated by some form of policy. So there is room for all of us at the table. And I know that, I kind of
Yeah.
took over the question.
No,
However,
it's
but I think it is important for people to understand that it doesn't matter what your thing is, there is room for you in this space. And I think that sometimes we get so caught up in, well, this person isn't doing this and this person isn't doing that, and this is what I'm upset about. And we don't, we struggle with turning our frustrations into action, right? Our complaints into energy to power us to be involved. And so I think that, I tell people all the time, we have to, especially with young people, we have to stop going to them leaning into party, right? Going on with this is what the Democrats are doing with and for you, right? If you connect the person to the issue, they'll find their place. Don't worry about their place because right now we have an apathy issue across the board. MPA, Independent, Green Party, Democrat, Republican alike. And so we just need people to be engaged. We need people to show up to the poll. We need people to feel like they have agency and license to be a part of this space, that it is a space of co-collaboration and not the people at the top are telling the people at the bottom what to do.
yeah, we need to be able to get people to see where they are in politics, not just where politics is messing with them. Because when you just see where politics is interacting with you, all you feel is that resentment. All you feel is
Right.
there's nothing I can do. It's just messing things up. It's messing up the zoning laws in my area. It's not listening to what I want it to say. They're not finding where they can interact with it, where their representative can come and talk to them and they can work on that. And
Right.
that's really important. But I also want to go back to you were talking about how having a home isn't necessarily a sign of wealth down in not College Park. What was the neighborhood you were talking about?
Pine Hills.
Pine Hills. And that that's important because so many young people right now I talk to, we think that we're never going to be able to own a home, right? At all. Not even just as a temporary thing. Like we don't. That's a pipe dream. And in Florida, we have so many homes being built. We have so much development. In some places overdevelopment, some places underdevelopment. But at the same time, we still feel like we young people can't get into that system. We can't start accumulating wealth. That was a very important part of historic racism was how there was a continued focused effort to stop minority communities from being able to buy homes, to
Yep.
be able to build wealth over time. So how are you, or at least your colleagues, working in the legislature to try and help that, whether through homeowners insurance, whether through ensuring that we develop sustainably and we don't have those communities that have been established be entirely destroyed, the environment around them, the preservations, all of that be eradicated while still making room for young people into this space to start letting people who don't have the wealth right now get onto that train of building wealth.
I'll say this one. I think that Floridians are a lot more. Um, we have an edge over some other states because we don't have an income tax, right? And you think that that would be the thing that would help us. However, the way that this economy is, it is hard for anybody to do anything. I mean, drive a car and need to fill up gas. You will feel it, right? And I think that, one, I think we have to do a better job and this is something that the legislature on every level or government on every level needs to do a better job of upskilling people, right? Upskilling our workforce so that we can make sure that we position ourselves to be leaders in innovation. Um, the other thing is you said something that's really important. I think that so many of us as Gen Zers have invested in this American dream, right? That, if you, to the point that you made, if you work hard enough, you can have the kid, you can have the dog, you can have the family, you can have the white picket fence. And for so many of us, it has become a nightmare, right? Because it is so expensive. And I think that we have to find ways as elected leaders to make sure that we have to find a way that we make sure that we're providing relief in different areas. That's why we need affordable healthcare or universal healthcare, right? I mean, you talk about, the money that we're spending on this useless war, like we can fund universal healthcare on that for all of Florida, right?
Yeah.
Take into consideration, the cost of school, which is extremely expensive. Student loans, like how do we make sure that we provide our young people with access to education in a way that sets us apart, that we don't have to bankroll it ourselves and sell an arm and a leg to do it, right? How do we make sure that we prioritize putting in rent caps and social service programs for young people who are trying to make ends meet but have to pay $3,000 or $2,000. I was talking to someone who's in a 1-1 paying $2,100. Like, and so it is, we have to find ways to touch different areas and aspects of life. Insurance is crazy. And while if you're a renter, while your renter's insurance may be 12 or $14 a month, if you got a car, I mean, car insurance everywhere is going up across the state. And so like we have to my issue, I think, sometimes with my colleagues, particularly my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, is the kind of deaf ear that is being turned to people who are saying, we need relief in this, we need relief in that. Um, I led with the when I opened about how we are in the midst of an affordability crisis that is crippling this state. And it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, what color you are, what your socioeconomic status is, you are feeling it somewhere. And so we have to make sure, again, because it is a mammoth size issue, we have to make sure that we do all the things that we can in the different areas to provide relief for people.
Yeah, we have to do what we can instead of doing nothing.
Yeah,
And
and
to
we're
get on the legislature more broadly, but sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Never let me cut you off. If you got something to
no, no.
say, talk
No,
over
no,
me.
no. You go. I was just gonna say, like, we're handling and dealing with stuff that people aren't calling our offices about, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're nobody called me about gerrymandered lines. Nobody is calling me and saying, oh please, and change the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, right? Like, and so I think that, we need to listen to the people. We need to listen to the people.
Definitely. And I think going back to, I've been following the state legislature for a minute, so, or not a minute, like a while.
Mhm.
So I remember back when during COVID, the legislature didn't want to dip into the rainy day fund. Like what's that there for? It's to solve issues when we go into these moments of crisis.
Correct.
And the Republicans wouldn't do it. And so getting onto that, how does it feel? Like how do you try to work through the right now the Democrats are in a super minority. How do you feel trying to work to get change through, even when you're so far out of the majority? How is that a process that you deal with as a representative?
Yeah, I mean, I think, while Democrats are not in the majority, I think that it empowers us to be strategic about how we get wins, right? How we get wins for our districts. Um, I will tell you. all of our wins don't show up in bills being passed, right? They don't, or with bills with my name on it. A lot of that work is really built around, building relationships with colleagues in the majority so I can help make, their legislation better for my community. I know that, they will say 90% of the bills that we pass are not culture war issues, which very well may be true. However, we spend 90% of our time on culture war issues, right? But I do think that there is some good policy that comes from both sides. Tell people, I think I told a group yesterday or today or something, a lot of the time you equate it to basketball, right? Like you have your time on offense when you're trying to push your policies, you're working your appropriations, you're doing all the things. I mean, I as a 6 month legislator, got a bill passed, which there are some Democrats who make it their full 8 years and don't pass anything at all, right? And so it shows that I have the ability to be able to do that work and be intentional and be strategic about how I engage with them. But I also think that, there are times where I have to negotiate changes to bills in committee and to bills that are going to the floor and really pushing for protections for people that not to sometimes to their fault, not always to their fault, that bill sponsors just overlook, right? And so while we have our offense time, we also have to play defense, right? Make stopping bad bills from progressing through the process. And I think that there are lots of ways that we can get wins. We have money in the budget right now. We passed a bill, like I said. Um, but I think the other thing and another big piece is like fighting for resources, right? Like working through these processes to make sure that we secure funding or connect our constituents and connect those who are in this community with state agencies that have grants, that have relief programs, that have all the things. Because I'll tell you, the only reason I am so aware of a lot of the services that are available is because I work with these agencies within the state's enterprise to make sure that I can provide relief. But you go on the website for ACA right now, you would have to click through tons of things in order to find out, what can you help me with? What grant program, right? And so I think that the other aspects, so there's offense, there's defense, and then there's the other big piece is just fighting for those resources to make sure that the people here in House District 40, the people in the state of Florida, even in a tough political environment with where sometimes it seems like we're always at each other's necks on both sides of the aisle, that there is still a possibility for us to be effective. And I think that I can still sound the alarm and I mean, I'm always going to stand up for what's right, for what is important to my constituents, but also I can be strategic and make sure that I do the things that I need to do to pass positive legislation that is going to benefit all people.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you brought up how much of it is not just getting bills passed, because 90% of the media, 90% of the time is being spent on the culture war stuff. That's 90,
Yeah.
not 90% of the change. That's not 90% of the job. Most of the job is connecting your constituents to resources. Most of the job is fighting over amendments to some bill, either to mitigate the harm that it could do to communities that the bill author didn't think about or intentionally left out. And beyond that, how much of the time is spent just amending positively,
Great.
right? Getting something added that wasn't a negative before it got involved, but positively making it better, making it more accessible. And so when we think of it in that basketball offense and defense, we're missing everything else. We're missing 90% of the job.
Yeah.
We're just thinking about that 10%. And that's where it's easier to then get hit by that other 90% and not see where you are in politics. Just
Correct.
see how it's hitting you and think that's unmutable because all the media talks about is culture war issues.
Because that's
All that
what
you hear
sells.
all you hear is that call to make you angry
Hmm.
about something when really there's room to build. There's room to take what's already there and use it better, right? Make it more accessible. Anyone who's dealt with Florida State Department websites, they're so bad.
Hmm.
It's so hard to navigate. And having representatives who care about their constituents enough, who have their team care about constituents enough, shout out to all the aides, they're amazing. I love the aides in the
Absolutely.
Capitol, who then can help connect constituents and get them the resources they need just by letting them see the system in a way that they didn't understand it before is
Hmm.
so helpful. It's so positive. And we need to celebrate that more. We need to let
Absolutely.
people know about it more. Get them really looking involved.
Because right, and
Um,
because politics and especially in Tallahassee, while again, you have people who are fighting for you. We also have wins that we're bringing home, and we like to talk about those things just as much as the other stuff.
yeah, the wins get you to keep going. The
Yep.
wins keep you from becoming apathetic when you just keep going and you feel like you're not getting the wins you need. Your community isn't getting as much as you feel like they deserve at times.
Mhm.
When you get those wins, you can come back and say, we're getting more. We're getting closer to what we deserve. We're getting more of what we want. And we need to keep showing up to make sure we get it in the future. Young people got to start showing up and keep showing up if we want to have room at the table, if we want to make sure that we're represented in the legislature to the level that we should be. Because the fact that there's barely any in the legislature. What's the
Yep.
average age in the Florida legislature? Like 50, in the
Yeah, the
50s?
average age is 50s.
It's in the 50s. That's not the average age of the voters. We need to get that. We need to get ourselves to feel energized, to support young people who are running, to get young people into office and to run if there's no one willing to represent us. If
Mhm.
people aren't willing to represent our communities, we need to be involved. So, sort of looking ahead, if you could pick one policy that you wanted to get to every race in Florida, there's someone who's actively pushing for that policy. What would you pick? Because I mean, I've heard about your healthcare. That's a really big deal. Is that it? I know you want to bring a bill up soon. You said there's big news and you can't talk about it too much, so I won't ask you to give details on that too early. But if you had like a one thing to get
If I
everyone,
have one thing and it passes, it just goes through.
yeah, we can go ahead. It passes. One thing to just boom.
Hmm. It would be, hmm, that's a really good question. I would say, can I do one in an honorable mention?
You can do one in honorable
Okay,
mention. We
let's
can
do
do
that.
multiple honorable mentions.
So my
I don't know
one
what I would
thing would
pick.
be universal healthcare. How do we pay for healthcare for everybody? How do we provide healthcare for people to be able to live a healthy, safe, prosperous life, right? I think that a lot of the issues that we experience, especially in communities of color, but everyone experiences it, is if you do not have access to quality healthcare, then it significantly diminishes your life expectancy. Because I mean, I can't tell you about how I've talked with hospitals from all across this state who the state pays millions and millions of dollars in charity care because they see patients who don't have health care. There are people right now who probably can or had healthcare and decided that it just got too expensive, so I'm not going to do anything. And they are trying to do their hardest not to get sick, right? I'll never forget Alan Grayson in one of his floor speeches when he was in Congress said, um, the ours health plan was if you get sick, die quick, right? Because and that's a reality for people. Like, if people there are some people right now who have pre-existing conditions, they have hereditary or genetic things that if they get sick and aren't able to treat it, will transition, right? And so universal healthcare would be my first thing. My honorable mention would be free school for all citizens of the state of Florida, like higher education, right? I
Yeah.
feel like we have a bad problem that isn't really being addressed. First of all, education is extremely important. We have to do a better job of making sure that we invest into our public institutions in the primary, secondary, and grad level. We have to do a greater investment in it. That's the first thing. But if we can make sure that we break that pipeline and be that bridge between access and opportunity for young people who want to do better, who want to live better lives, I believe that we'll see a drastic change in what is possible for Florida and for this country. But there are so many people who aren't able to go to school here in this state who have no con that they end up just staying home. Like I have classmates right now who have never seen the neighborhood that we from high school, who never seen anything except the neighborhood that we grew up in. And it is because a number of things. Either they didn't feel like they were invested in, they didn't feel like they could afford school, they didn't like there are all these things, but I feel like if we set the precedent that every child deserves an opportunity to have a great future. And the way that we show up that commitment is by making sure that they have access to our Florida schools, which our Department of Education says is number one in the nation. Why don't we provide that to Floridians? And so the honorable mention would be making sure that we provide free higher education for Florida citizens.
I mean, those are amazing, and really they intersect. Because like I have
Yeah,
a friend right now. She has to work so hard to be able to just hit the school bills,
yeah.
and so she's had to delay surgeries sometimes because the cost of healthcare and the
Amazing.
cost of school were both so high. She had to pick one for that period that she was going to be able to pay for and put the other one off. Right? They're really intertwined. The affordability crunch on young people,
Yeah.
where it costs so much to progress. It costs so much to get that opportunity that we were
Yes.
promised everyone should be able to have. If you work hard enough to get to university, you can get the house down the line. But instead, this American nightmare of it's only there if you can really get, like if you're lucky, if you were born to the right zip code, if you have enough money to get through, if you have these things that not everyone has, right? Which is why we have amazing schools here in Florida. I'm a student at the University of Florida. We have amazing colleges here, but not everyone can access them, right? Even if they get the grades, they can't afford to go, or they don't have an option nearby them. I mean, we need to invest more in that. That is how we get young people to build forward, is by putting that investment in to plant those trees that even if we're not going to sit under them, one day someone will, right? The next young people will get to see them. Gen Alpha may get to see them. It may be
Yeah.
too late to put that investment in for Gen Z. We can put it in for the next people. We could stop the cycle and hand down something better than we were handed. And
And and and that's
so-
important, Carter, because I think that, a lot of the work that we do, my one of my very good friends and colleagues, Dr. Anna Escamani says all the time,
she's
you
amazing.
know, there are a lot of the work that we are doing is for sunsets and sunrises that we will never see, right? And that is so true. Like what you just said is we may not be the ones who inherit it. We may not be the ones who get to have the full breadth and width and take advantage of the things that we are fighting for, but that doesn't mean that we should fight any less. Like we still need to show up for people. We still need to show up for the next generation and the people who we are trying to make this world better for.
Yeah. I wish I could keep going. We're running low on time. So one last question, and I want to
Mhm.
hear your full answer to this. Don't worry about running too long on it. If you had to speak directly, if you wanted to speak directly to a young person in Florida who feels like they're not being seen, politics isn't acknowledging them, their issues aren't being heard, who feel like everything's just overlooking them, what would you say to them?
Don't give up. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for acceptance or validation from anyone or anything to be a part of this fight, right? Um, f- I get that you may be tired. I get that politics feels loud. I get that this space feels toxic. I get that you have worked hard and feel exhausted. And it is easy to feel like nothing ever really changes. But the truth is, decisions are still being made about our housing and about our rights and about our future, whether we show up or not. And so we have and need everybody, every one of you to be engaged in the fight, to fight like our lives depend on it because they do. And there is, my mother would always tell me, she said, you can be the sweetest, juiciest, prettiest peach on a tree, but there will be people who don't like you because you're a peach. That doesn't mean that you should stop being a peach, right? That doesn't mean that you stop fighting for what is right. That doesn't mean that you stop speaking up for communities or people that feel disenfranchised. That doesn't mean that you give up because you don't feel like you're getting enough attention. It means that we still show up every day and choose hope. It means that you still get up out of the bed and decide that you want to be a part of the change that you see. And the reality is, nobody is coming to save us. We are the ones we've been waiting for, right? We are the ones who will shift the paradigm. We are the ones who will shake the atmosphere. We are the ones who will create a future that is better for us and the people that come after us. However, it only happens when we show up. And so we need everybody to be engaged. We need everybody to find their issue, find their thing, find their sweet spot in this space and work that thing because there is so much that is happening. And these leaders who are in Tallahassee, these people who are in DC want us to give up. But that's when we show up time and time again. And so if nobody gets anything from this entire conversation, it is to wake up and choose hope, but to also work that hope. Turn that frustration into energy. Turn that frustration into fight. Turn that frustration into movement and action. And take the things that you have been giving your voice, your vote, and work those things.
That's amazing. I mean, that's it. That's it. That should be the entire, like, that's the point of, I think, everything we tried to say today is that we've got to pick hope. You put that wonderfully. Um,
And before you close out, I just
so yeah,
to add something to that, like democracy has never defended itself. It is only defended when people decide that they are going to be a part of that change, to people who decide that enough is enough, people who are tired of business as usual, people who are tired of being treated like the status quo. Like those are the people who defend democracy. And we are watching it be shackled and chained and fettered and tied to a dog post on as if it is something to be dismissed and not something to be embraced by people in all levels of government. But we have to be those who are defenders of that democracy because democracy, the root of it, the definition of it is government by the people, for the people, with the people, in cohesion with the people, right? And so we have to make sure that we are protecting that very sacred thing that has led this country for the 250 years, but not in a way that is representative of all people.
yeah. We need to make sure that everyone is represented. We need to make sure that it is a government of the people, not governing the people.
Correct.
It's not just a thing that exists. It's
Yes.
something that we're a part of and that we need to take part in to make sure we can still take part in the future. Because the people who handed us this box of rocks, they did. Older generations took part in it and they got all the policies in that helped them. And the problem is now that they only did ones that helped them. So we
Correct.
have to fix it by helping ourselves and helping those who come after us. We need to be involved.
Correct.
So thank you for the conversation today. Everybody, this has been State Representative RaShon Young, the first Gen Z Democrat elected to the state legislature. It's been a pleasure to have you. This is the Gen Z Ask podcast.